So now, if the question is, the one's going up to Roger, who loves to find unilateral ways to state the sustainment of his dignity pursuant to all endeavours and involvements and projects. And if they were to approach him and say, well, technically you're obstructing justice by keeping him here, you owe him, Roger might turn back to them and say, well, if he, in this need to travel, he only has to call and request a meeting. It's no. It's not going to be played that way, and that's simply because it indemnifies to other people's onlooking the prospect that the initial claims that Roger filed, the camera planting, and the initial journalistic efforts were done with my consent. Now, he might have done a dodgy deal with the man who mum's fourth wedding with that guy. That's entirely possible. It fits with them sustaining the grounds by which they disliked me. Then wanting to match that with the prospect of me having been invited to employment at the Canberra Hospital, while knowing that I hadn't. They would know it would have been a weight on my mind, the terms by which I left capital, and it's like the feeling that you have if you were rural or in a campsite and you've got to watch out for reptiles. You're on alert, but with no consent given by my person to Roger, and then of course I'm invited by Elizabeth Braden's suggestion to go, whereas it could only have been Roger through liaising with management at the Capital Chemist warehouse at the back of Waniasa shops that he would have ascertained word that I don't think in the most gentlemanly ways about Elizabeth Braden, and had taken on the phone orders for Capital Chemist warehouse stock to go to Elizabeth Braden's shop at O'Connor. I'm not going to be a gossip, but she's not. She wasn't exactly the poster girl of other Capital Chemist shops or the warehouse, but she invites me to go and to work at O'Connor. Not only invites me, but encourages, this employer, brunette, long hair. Would you like a lift home? Watch them now. What they weren't expecting was any sort of response, and now watch them trying to tell you contradictory things. That my observations are to be dismissed as coincidental, but their profile and all the predeterminist axioms that you're to just merely imagine, independent of the factuality of events, are however cogent and valid and merit your belief and your crediting. Watch them go indeed. So no, a liaison between lawyers, lawyer to lawyer, and my lawyer talking to his lawyer. Well, there's not going to be me meeting Roger Toll when Roger crosses me to film me. If I can do things like film him fucking his partner and put the footage on YouTube, so I have to do stuff like that in payback before I would consider a personal conversation. So the ones that I think I would equate all concepts of justice with, like, wanting to write litigiously, and that's how I would see it. Um, I've been thinking about, well, this. I don't devote much time trying to estimate out these moves, which is, I mean, it obviously was misled. I was unaware that she had taken such an interest in uh, sticking a nose into, and yet not talking to me about what gender she had with art. As I saw it, what I think is absolutely horrible is when a person looks at it and would dictate to you what. I mean, only to take you or advise you go to psychiatry, where they do use the Rorschach effect, which is a blot of ink, and they go and they ask you, can you look at this blot of ink? What do you see? And how vulgar. So yeah, so what's going on with Alan is that I've seen her drive by disguised. I've seen her avoid conversation follow up, and I've just talked about her um, back in church, saying, and then if she calls that the day she stood up to Gary Bradford, it's still the day she stood up to Gary Bradford about praying to Jesus in ways that Jesus himself taught not to, and therefore you don't even have to. You don't even have to. You can throw aside the anything about the question of the sexuality of Jesus in his day. Um, if he's her Lord and he said, "Don't pray to me in public groups," and Alan is like, "Yeah, oh, and he died for you and died for you. Quick, let's all pray to him in public groups." Like, uh, te- tears of a be a, you'll be a woman soon. I I wish I wish her the best, but yeah, I see the same. She wants to be on the run from. So, yeah, she'll go. Why are you a fan of Corn? Amongst other things, they're true to themselves. What about Manson? He worships the devil. No, he doesn't, and you should read his quotes online where he talks about what Church of Satan regarded devil worship to be about in the mid to late 90s. That now means you've lied on behalf of two bands. Is that because they have long hair in a way that makes you feel disappointed that you prayed to your Lord in a way that his were against his wishes? And what sort of a Christian does that make you? One to lie about everyone else. Okay, well, don't you ask? Don't go. Now it's my turn. Now it's Alan Ayer's day to save the world. Um, like I said, it was contingent on the question: can art be enough for a friendship, or are you going to complicate things and to my life into a season of neighbours, um, or Twin Peaks, or whatever the fuck you're into? Because if so, you can. Oh, go get fucked. Whoa, go get fucked. Whoa, shit. Fuck. Whoa. So yeah, concerning Alien, I posted. I thought I know that she once upon a time had me compose or put together and edit video clips to be used in the ministry to spur on thought. And there was never any one way to look at um, inter- interpretation. It's very early days. This has been before creative arts were visually pursued as school electives, but um, that's separate from a separate category. I acknowledge from what theology is said on the inside of a church should be about, which is truth, the truth about God, and so problems were encountered there because I went back to crediting a combination of Shakespeare and Manson for saying be true to yourself, because Alan seems to be have borne out some corruption against the ethic. But when I was proud of her the most was when she had stood up to Gary, and this was in front of the congregate, and Gary had said, there was something about the church's routine that was contrary to the church's teachings on Jesus' teachings on prayer, and that was the endorsement of public prayer. I've talked about how it's so many vulgarities stem from this view that he was thought to have died for you. Alan, he was one to have gone around saying that it was her second sentence as in a paragraph whereby she tries to introduce you to Jesus. She's like, this motherfucker died for you. But this teaching, when you pray, go and be alone. Do not stand as they do in the synagogues, boasting aloud in order to gain the attention of men. And you could even watch the church leader if you did the Asian stealth mode where you're praying but you're going. And in Asian stealth mode, you can detect if the leader of a church is even going around inspecting to see who is praying in the congregation and who is not. But either way, once Asian stealth mode has detected that assessment is being made, you know that the preacher is, despite being fully aware on Jesus' teachings concerning how prayer is to be practiced correctly, a traitor against Jesus' teachings. Now, to my understanding, Gary Bradford is now a Muslim. But anyway, back then, so why are you teaching us to disobey directly the teaching of this Lord of ours? What is it you want us to admire about him? His six-pack. So what she meant by be true to yourself always, I was trying to work out what's truth to you. It's not the Bible. It's not teachings in the Bible. But I admired that she had stepped up to Gary Bradford. I knew I'd have an altercation with him, and for me it was the tipping point. I said, I'm not going to teach in your ministry ever again. I had encountered the post-betrayal for monetary gain Gospel of Matthew account of Judas's shortly followed thereafter suicidal hanging out of guilt for having returned the money gained for betraying Jesus to the treasury, insisting they take it back on the basis that it's blood money, and then hanging himself. Verses in the book of Acts, the same amount of money is used for the purchase of a field known as Akeldama, the field of blood, and that while ploughing at Akeldama, the field of blood, Judas trips, falling headlong and head first, essentially, and his bowels gush out. Now, he couldn't have hung himself by the feet. Not a great many suicides in the Bronze Age took flight, if you will, by virtue of the hangee hanging himself by his feet. You also have two different types of death. So if you look up a knobhead called Ken Ham, he has a creationist museum in Kentucky, and he felt a calling of God, calling him out of Australia to go to America, where he could better do God's work. And he's gone instead to a region of Kentucky, where couldn't be a bigger man for more medical health graduates, and he's there building the fucking sequels to Noah's Ark. The only good fact to come out of Ken Ham's mouth, he's got volumes 1 and 2 of called Demolishing Supposed Bible Contradictions. And so one that he addresses is actually the contradictory death of Judas Iscariot. And he just says, imagine that you had two different perspectives, but they arrived at the scene one 10 minutes later after the other one. Then they're going to give slightly different accounts, aren't they? So, well, hang on, you have one is you've got a twofold. You've got coverage over two sets of contradictory facts. You've got that in guilt, Judas would not accept the money paid for betraying Jesus, but he called it blood money as a basis for handing it back to the treasury. And then you've got that he used the money to purchase a field, the field of blood. So that's not one journalist covering the same event. One of them happened or none of them happened in that event. And that's the law of contradiction holding steady. And the other one is the nature of his death was if he trips while tending to his field and is said to have fallen headlong in such a way as it's an implied accidental death. In other words, he's working in the field, goes, fuck, I've fallen over, fuck, and now dead. Whereas that contradicts the means of death against Matthew's hanging out of suicidal guilt, committing suicide by hanging out of a traitor's guilt. So it's contradiction on those two fronts. Mr. Ham does nothing to reconcile it. His books are proof that he probably was trying to get a message out to Australians, and everyone said, fuck off. If someone feels a God has called them to another region of the world, and it happens to be Kentucky, where they've got the most ranted, southerner, there's Borat researching the South because of how many don't get basic cable and wouldn't recognize him as Ali G or Borat or Bruno. You've got Ken Ham getting called to the same locale just to build a holy land and fucking build Noah's Ark and publish these books on contradictions that don't work and that don't resolve contradictions. What I think was contradictory was that anybody here in Australia thought he had an ounce of sense to his claim. Um, and so he went, well, fine, I'll locate a region of the world that does and make a bunch of money, but that's not a good business strategy. His arguments fall back. Bill Maher kind of pulls him up, going, well, not over 97% of the National Academy of Sciences comprised by the atheistic and the agnostic. How do you respond to that, Mr. Ken Ham? And Ken Ham turns back and says, well, they're sinners in the eyes of God. How do you put no better, Mr. Maher? Are you God? Are you God, Mr. Maher? And Bill Maher goes, no. And that response leaves Ken Ham thinking, shabam, like, what a fucking argument we just won. It's very much like these AFP with going, they constantly reframe the issue, whether it's done on purpose or whether it's closed-mindedness. They go, and what I'm beginning to wonder is that, if they're privately owned, but being told to push a religious agenda in full view that's violating the Religious Discrimination Act, they'd be pushing a religion that's a distraction or a diversion from the religion held by whoever they're accountable to. That way, when they violate the Religious Discrimination Act by a particular agenda, the crime's never going to be one in which complicity could ever be supposed to subsist between the land rights owners and the AFP as the offending party. It would also be a religion thought to be superior than the religion given to the AFP to give to us. So, once again, pointing back to Freemasonry. But yeah, so Alan, you talk about being true to yourself, be true to yourself always. She had taken her stand and said to call what she could have called Gary Bradford out on. Well, you're teaching us to pray against how Jesus taught us to pray, but to Jesus. So why, if that's your formula, like, shouldn't we expect him to shut up? And maybe that was Gary's trick at the time, was that, he wanted those who had remembered Jesus' teachings on how to pray to kind of go, well, no way will we be getting a prayer response at this church gathering because we've talked in public to be heard by other men. So, yeah, my locking of horns occurred when I said, look, how did Judas die? A third account exists that's not in the biblical canon where Judas, it's supposed to be a number of years after this betrayal. The moral of the story, either way you go, is that this betrayal cost Judas his guard against making a fatal accident, or his conscience, or his his ripped six-pack and skills with the ladies. Because in the third type of death, he is mowed down by a chariot while trying to pass through a gateway opening. And he's also ridden with sickness. Pus and maggots are said to have crawling from wounds and out of his body, and he's truly repulsive. So the common moral is that, well, he betrayed Jesus and he got fucked with. However, the teachings of Gary Bradford were now that I taught you how Jesus taught taught his followers to pray. I'm going to have you all pray in public and betray Jesus right in front of all of you. So, that was Gary, and then Gary, would you believe it or not, soon to be up on grabbing the mic talking about his diet, um, how God's helping him through his dietary problems. He's passing his worms, to use a metaphor. And I had called him out and said, well, look, just tell me which way that Judas died, if you could resolve. And he goes, I'll get back to you on that one, Luke. And then that's when he called in the leverage that he thought he had on me, which was that as a fan of Ed Kowalczyk and the band Live during high school, and he had walked around saying, don't wear Live t-shirts to church, Luke. Live spelled backwards is evil. And I was like, God spelled backwards is dog. What are you getting at? But anyway, now science, as you think of application of scientific method, it was widely said by someone I worked for that science doesn't tell us what is true. The truth is defined as the true or actual facts of a case, but if you're a person who is on the quest for truth, it's good to give you, particularly if it comes to scientific truth, to know how to give the mind peace of mind and a break routinely, because you just mean the true or actual facts of a case, and all your theories are amenable to being updated if you gain more or new facts of their and you could have two scientists in complete disagreement, and then the one who got famous is on his deathbed and 5 months off dying, and the other scientist finally comes forward and disproves his theory, and in that event there's supposed to be a gentleman's handshake, and they're out of a mutual respect for the method of scientific discovery more so than the results. The two scientists are supposed to shake hands and say, thank you for overturning my theory. That was my life's work, but you've advanced the frontiers of science. It's supposed to operate like that. But as far as the dynamics of, well, be true to yourself always. Once you've got a church teaching you, here's the right way to pray according to Jesus, and then they're telling you to betray this way of praying to Jesus while praying to Jesus. It's essentially a fucking. It's got to be a mockery. Intended to the congregation from. So it was wise for Annie to stand up to him. I just don't know why she didn't with more fervor and say, fuck you, more than she'd have earned everyone's respect, because she would just say, well, you were the one the other week reading, but when you pray, don't be as they do in the synagogues, speaking aloud in order to be heard by men, rather go and be alone, and your Lord who hears you in silence will reward you in secret. And that was all that she had to recite back to him, and then he'd go, oh yeah, so leading you all in public prayer to Jesus is something that would be done by a high cholesterol fat fuck of the near millennium. And I would say, hey. But no, so the art I sent the post to Melbourne, I really was just interested in asking, A, does Alan his brain still work? B, would she is would it work to the extent that she would have like philosophy conversations? And C, uh, I hope that, like, does friendship mean more to her than Christian recruiting? Because if it doesn't, then I will cast my lot with the detractors who had said, well, no, there's no point in being friends with her. She's gone off the deep end of making sense. And yeah, only to get kind of lambasted with a bunch of absurd, absurd on arrival statements. Alright, okay, you're so not on par with this. So the Christian mind knows what it is to be challenged and revelation. It just doesn't know. Well, it's debatable. Then there's well, I don't know. Christianity even knows plucking this scene from this piece of art. You know, to try and essentially help proselytize. Our Christian youth group well understood pinning scenes out of secular art to try and get across a Christian message. Now, if you were to have sent letters to the directors and the production staff of these non-Christian films saying, you know, we want to use injection scenes out of Train Spotting and Pulp Fiction for a Christian anti-drugs sermon that we're thinking of doing here in a few weeks. You know, do you think would you have gotten even would they have bothered making a call back? Would they have called back and said, would you like it to sit down and talk about it over a nice hot cup of shut the fuck up? Um, so, you know, I came to the conclusion that the concept of a uniting church Christian is an oxymoron. It's an oxymoron that, and there's that which, you know, can be presented before you and you can abhor, which is the content, literary content of the Bible, in that the whole rainbow and scope of every type of offense, every type of offense that can be, is often is for the most part called out by name, and there are mandates and permissions for these offenses to occur, and for which whereby God has said certain things, like if you give the 50 shekels of silver to a virgin you've just raped, you can buy her from her father. But because you've gone and, you know, because rape, they evidently had given some consideration to it being bad, but only to an extent. Because after all, the first woman was made for men's loneliness. The curious problem of man's loneliness. So there were other verses saying, you know, if a woman doesn't scream out loud enough while being raped, she deserves to be stoned to death as an accessory to her own defilement, which is to say, like, you got yourself into this, you should have fucking screamed out louder. Now because you didn't, like, fucking, you deserve to die too. Which, you know, so this verse is hardly accommodating to a scenario in which a woman might be bound or gagged or otherwise unable to speak. But these were the fast and Judge Judy speed anti-female manner in which women's rights were treated during the Old Testament of the Bible. Yeah, you know, Everyone keeps drawing this. Where I think Alan is going to have problems, and it's why I challenge. I say now, if you haven't even turned back and realized this one, even I cast my lot in the. You must be, just you'll be a lesbian, happy lesbian for someone someday. But parade, and that's because going around saying this man of his own, this conquered citizen who was falsely accused, not less of his own volition, went up that hill to die, thinking of you and all your assets and all your future goals, and while drafting a plan for your life at every turn. He had you on his mind and nothing more. That shows like no humility towards the dying. It shows no humility towards the suffering, mistreated. It shows an offset of consideration, and it shows, as long as you're stating the claim that Jesus as a physical person loved everyone, it shows unadulterated biphobia to the point where you would want a bisexual murdered rather than permit one to exist. And now that's where I wondered if, by way of appreciation for Art Allen, he would actually understand the challenge in Doppel as I saw it. But I only went on to learn she quite likely had more than sufficient former awareness of. So I copped a whammy of learning well. So the boss is what the boss is watching me fucking unwind and think about all this stuff. Then at work it's homosexual enslavement time. The owner's saying, "Be a good poof." I don't understand why he thinks in an official capacity where he's run a police check on me prior to working that he would ever even speak to me in that manner. But there are things I need to do to meditate for my sake of recovery, and my love of art is one of those things. If he's going to make an offense, a federal offense, out of standing in front of a TV and deconstituting the memory of his bourgeois prejudice, plenty of pathetic vocabularies during work time, and I'm not even allowed to do that without prompting his survey. Then I realized the same thing about Freemasonry as with the church. It feels so obvious that you should be done away with to a Freemason, but it's again the failure to consider the historicity of the Gospels. So, if a Gospel said something that was more attuned to the Mason agenda of 2021, but had been written in 750 Common Era, your church would do its best to say it was written in 20 of the Common Era, and was comprised of direct quotes from Jesus himself, where he's saying like, "I'm a martyr, I'm 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 a martyr, hey, hey, oh, I'm a martyr," and so I treated yourself as going, well, if someone has stated to me that they're about certain principles, and then I see that it's well, if I see that it's a hook, they go, well, we represent. I'm quoting to you from the Pharmacist Code of Ethics and the Capital Chemist Mission Statement, so that you understand the formalities of what's outwardly represented, while knowing that deep down we wish for more sick people. A challenge was put to me by one pharmacist. He said, "How many pharmacists are going to say, let's go home today, that I can't find a single sick person in all of Canberra. This is brilliant." How many people, how many pharmacists are going to call that the successful day, the day that no one got sick? Um, because in his view, uh, such 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 character is essentially what pharmacist is looking for. His own um, redundancy. The, and I admired that. Uh, I admired that and saw it as less hypocritical than church. But you'll find that, yeah, that book is from the locums. Um, Locums don't have things like, payment incentives contingent on favorable in the eyes of upper management fluctuation of rebates of certain prescriptions that are so high as to say, well, you're dispensing a high amount, enough amount of psych medications that the rebates are in the thousands per supply per patient, and you've earned yourself a stapler with the brand of a heart medicine logosified on the stapler itself, and a holiday and a computer supplied by the same Sanofi Aventis, the same drug manufacturing company. Hope you enjoy the holiday. Hope you enjoy the computer. Hope you enjoy the fucking stapler. Um, but the stories I would hear was that the two co-founders earn a percentage of the GNP for every store they set up, plus the managing pharmacist is paid their share. So it means that for every shop that's open, Roger and Gary just keep getting paid. They get paid for the work done by the managing pharmacist that's plonked there. But now who's free of those stresses? The locum. The locum just gets a call going, well, there's no chemist to run the shop in Deakin today. Can you do it? And then on a few hours' notice, we'll go, yeah, I'll do the Deakin shift. And so they don't care about what group the chemist chain is. They don't care about the chain. They don't care about the location of the shop. All they know is that a pharmacist can't be there for whatever reason. They're not invested personally in the gross net profit of that shop. They have nothing but them and their training and their swag of morals to take with them, and they're the best type of pharmacists to ever work with, work for. They're tremendously more honest, and many of them have additional postgrad degrees in other aspects of healthcare, such as dermatology, and sometimes they're sought for on the basis of their postgrad skills, because the sick approach going, I've got this shit on a hand, and then the locum will go, oh, I know how to make a cream for that, and then they'll run out the back and go, quick, I need 50 cc's of metamorphoid stat. And then they'll come back and make a cream, and they'll make them their own custom cream, hand it to them in a jar, and then the patient will come back the next day saying that, oh, that pharmacist from the other day, that their work was excellent. I thought they were brilliant. But yeah, with no financial investment in the GNP of that particular store, there's no they don't take on this prejudiced idea that, the more psychiatric medicine in circulation, the better it is for everyone here. That's a mood that can be drooped over people in capital cast in a way that is not so subtle as to be felt by everyone, but just not explicated enough, because that's frustration for, Freemasons. As I said, they think that they're martyrs, being essentially in a position where they're making money back out of stores where they're not working. It's like they're not catching their martyrs. So it's like putting out 30 coins and not getting someone abducted. So when they check in and go, well, where's my evidence trail of all this antipsychotic psych med being dispensed? Oh, you haven't been dispensing much. Well, then they'll lash the whip at the chemist who does run that store. And um, um, and that's why Gary Cairns wears Stay Free sanitary pads, and during his monthly visitor, Stay Free tampons. Thank you. Come again. Thank you. Come